Hey guys, this is Dr. Josh with Premier Family Chiropractic, and welcome to the Premier Life Podcast. I am so excited to have you guys aboard with me today because today we're going to talk about really, I feel like a simple subject, but something that really resonates with everybody, especially this time of year, and that is simple meals. You know what I mean? So this time of year, the reason I love talking about it is this is where we all kind of fall off the rails, and nutrition is arguably one of the largest interferences in our health. And when we fall off the rails, so to speak, it can be hard to get back on because we're not really staying cognizant of it. And so what I really want to hit on is I want to give you some options of some easy things to do. But I also want to hit on some principles about nutrition and about like eating well, because I personally believe that if you have the principles down, you will be able to create things fairly easily. And so as we go through this, like my goal is to kind of hit a principle, kind of give you an example of something, and then my hopes are that like it keeps you on track for the health goals that you have. And for some of you that may have potentially fallen off, this is a good way to be like, you know what, I'm going to get back on there. So first part of today is let's talk about balancing your plate. So the big thing I want you guys to focus in this part of balancing your plate are your macronutrients. So think of like proteins, carbs, and fats. You want to create a balance. And why is that so important? Well, when you include all three of them, your body's getting the proper energy that it needs to fuel itself. Like every cell in our body requires the nutrients to actually function at its best. And so when you break it down more, like the proteins are really essential for like muscle repair, immune system. Really, there's a satire. There's tons of options for that. Carbohydrates, we're really talking about energy and fuel. Our brain really utilizes carbohydrates well. It's also stored in the muscle. And then the same thing for fats. Like fats are huge for energy production, but also hormone balance, as well as nutrient absorption as well. So like a really quick example for that example meal is like we hit chicken pretty hard in our household, but we really prioritize our protein, right? So we're looking at chicken, beef, whatever is easily available and that you can put in many different dishes. Because for those of you that don't know, like I have 3 kids at home that are now 4 and under. So there are times throughout the day where it gets a little rowdy at home. Like it's fun, but it can get a little chaotic. And especially when it gets close to that dinner time, it's like, what do we do? How do we do this? How do we create something that's quick and easy that everybody's going to eat? And so we usually prioritize the first thing is like, what is our protein? Because we know, most people aren't getting enough protein in as is. Plus, kids need a lot more protein than adults do. So the first thing we look at is our protein. So we're either going with chicken, beef, and what we try to do is we try to make larger amounts at one time so that we have them available throughout the rest of the week. But what a good example that we utilize is we will either utilize grilled chicken, either like roasted potatoes, or even like some rice, but make sure it's all of this food is like organically sourced. I would say in doing all of this, make sure that you are getting it from a good source. Make sure that your food is from a clean source, because all of the additives and the toxins in there, and we've had podcasts about this in the past. I would have you guys look back at those, but they create disruption in the body and they're not healthy. So look at the source of your food. But easy ways of doing that are like you have chicken, you have like a roasted sweet potato and a like spinach with some olive oil on top. So like that way you're getting each of those major things, and all of those are supplying with healthy nutrients as well. Going back to the food options, this is the second principle I want to hit on, is prioritize whole foods and not and unprocessed foods. Okay. And the biggest reason for that is really just the additives that are in there, and they pull them out of their natural state. We have like a lot of natural foods, and we're talking about like fruits, vegetables, like meats, like they have certain enzymes in them that allow for healthy breakdown and digestion of them. And so same thing with like when we get to those processed foods, they've got unhealthy fats, they've got preservatives in them. They just, again, those added things create a lot of disruption. I've always said, God made things are better than man made things. And so when you're looking at your food, look for that. I think those are core principles that you really want to look at, or a balanced plate, and also prioritizing like healthy whole foods. So think of salads, for instance. Like we have tons of we are constantly stocked with salad mix because that's an easy way to get greens in. Again, when you're making your protein in larger amounts, like you can add that onto the salad, as well as some added vegetables. So but make sure like you're watching your portions. So this is the third principle. There is, many people want to think of 3 big meals throughout the day, and really it's more beneficial if you're eating multiple small meals spread out throughout the day, because those larger meals can actually overload your system. You can actually get in a large amount of glucose, which, if not done correctly, if your body's not ready for that, so to speak, like all of those carbohydrates are turned into fat and stored within the body. And so you gotta watch how much you're putting in at one time, because the body can only metabolize so much at one time. So a good example of this is like small bowls. I think of again, my go-to is a salad. So I'm thinking of a small salad with some grilled chicken on it, maybe some avocado for the fats, and a little bit of oil on there for some of the seasoning, and that's all. Like, you can do that multiple times throughout the day. I would say it's good to make your plate colorful. So, and the reason behind this is because all of these different foods at different colors, they have different micronutrients in it. This is one thing that I think a lot of people forget about, are the micronutrients that we get in our foods, right? So when you're thinking about what am I shopping for, make sure you're getting multiple colored foods. Or, I'm thinking of bell peppers, carrots, beets, like all of these different foods. And if you look into them, like each one of them are supplied with different micronutrients, which actually supply different organs. So there's certain, they're finding these connections between different colored foods actually affect different tissues within the body. And so I implore you, when you're going to the grocery store, look for the multiple colors. Like I always say, it's like make a rainbow on your plate, so to speak. So I think of a stir fry, right? So, and you, again, as long as you have these with you, I feel like it's not that long of a process to do. But I think of a stir fry where you have like red peppers, yellow squash, you got broccoli, you got purple cabbage, some quinoa in there, as well as because quinoa is a good superfood, and then a protein source. That's something that you can make in a large amount as well, so that you also have potentially for another meal down the road, which is what I want to talk about next, which is meal prepping. Okay, now I know this is about quick and easy meals, but if you're preparing those things in the future, I feel like that makes up for having oh no, what are we going to do about today? I feel like the largest part is about creating a plan. And I get it. Life happens. Sometimes you're like, dude, I got 3 hours of sleep last night with the kids. We woke up, we're dragging out of bed. The kids they're not happy because they didn't get much sleep. So they're a little whiny. So it's what do I do to get these? And in those instances, my first go-to is a shake. Make a shake for the whole family. So I think having a good, clean source protein, protein powder, coconut milk, even adding some spinach in there so the kids get some greens. And you can even add some stevia or something like that to sweeten it up. And the kids will go crazy over it. And then they have something that they can, then when they're upset, it's like, well, they have something that they can fuel themselves. And typically they kind of calm down. But I feel like if you're prepping your meals, there's less of the like, oh no, we have to get it something easy. And I would say we use the crock pot for majority of our meals, because it's easy. You take the ingredients, you basically toss it in there and you let it do its thing. And then again, depending on the portions you're making larger portions for multiple meals. And I think that's what makes it easier. And it's like, all you have to do is put it in a pan and heat it up. I wouldn't recommend using a microwave. It just radiates your food. Find another source of heating up your food. But I think these are I think if you have these principles down, these quick and easy meals are way more simple. They're way easier, and they don't have to be complicated. I mean, so same thing of like, plan out what you're wanting to eat, like figure out the protein that you're trying to have, the carbohydrate, which I would honestly have most people utilize like a quinoa or a sweet potato or vegetables. You can get most of your carbohydrates in by vegetables, and yeah, you'll have a little larger portion. But I don't know many people that ate too many vegetables, so for some people that are like, well, how am I supposed to replace all these carbohydrates? Start with vegetables. Like start having more salads, start having more greens, like start having more vegetables. I think that those are just simple ways of doing it, and they don't have to take a ton of preparation. You know what I mean? And you can take time to cut those up throughout. Like, again, that's where the meal prep comes into play. And so I would say by dedicating an hour or two a week can save a ton of time by ensuring that you have healthy options ready. So to kind of wrap up, to recap where we're at, I want to reiterate, like, we want to have a balanced plate. So make sure you're having equal portions of proteins, carbs, and fats. Prioritize the whole foods, unprocessed foods. Make sure you're getting clean, healthy ingredients. Watch your portion sizes. So again, you can split those out throughout the day. I know a lot of people who have a hard time getting in enough protein throughout the day. And if you split those up throughout the day, that's actually very accomplishable. Get the rainbow plate. So include all kinds of different colors within your foods, because you're going to get a ton of different micronutrients that are going to be amazing for your health. And make sure it's some kind of sustainable thing that you can do replicable. So that's why I think the meal prep is huge. Each of these will help really make it easier. I think the easier you make things, the more attainable that they actually are. And for those of you that are like, we need something really, really quick, I go to salads. I go to some kind of bowl, making sure it's packed with tons of vegetables, maybe some quinoa or some rice. But largely it is proteins, vegetables, and fats. And it's serving us really well. So for those, again, guys, I think these are going to set us up to move into the holidays really well. And thank you guys for joining me. I am Dr. Josh again. And as always, let's grow together.